Okay, so for a long time, at least for me, at the beginning, some of the mechanics were sort of placeholder-ish, or they were put in to fit certain mechanical goals. But I wasn't really going to keep them, and so I always felt like there were some issues, and one of those is the sort of vestigial tail of this tap laser, and sort of the counter shot laser that appears when you fire into orbs. Like it wasn't really, it wasn't meant to exist totally. It sort of was there to as a placeholder for an idea, because if you think about the way it works, right? You fire on it and it's very arbitrary. It just kind of comes out randomly after a certain amount of shots. It's kind of hard to tell. It's too instant, and the counter shot itself, if you notice how it functions, it's not really like effective for some patterns, so it's not really a great screen clear. So the concept was there, right? The idea is that the orb stores shots and it'll expend them. But it was really meant to be more based on patterns, and it was supposed to come on its own. Whether or not you input, you input like 20 shots or whatever, it'll still it comes on its own, right? And based on how much you feed it, and it's more immersive way of dealing with the problem of the orb. It ties the mechanic into rank and emphasizes orb feeding instead of speed killing. Every pattern's supposed to have a unique version of something, and it gives much more depth to it than a version where it just fires off randomly. This means that these red and blue lasers, like, they have to be used differently. They have to have different functions. First of all, they shouldn't be absorbed. No one should be able to absorb them, either you nor them. Because if these lasers are distinct from bullets, then why should they be treated like them? And I always felt it was out of place. Having that screen clear, having that sort of different aspect to it. It didn't work for me. So I wanted to change the orb mechanic, and I wanted to make it more in line with this concept of, well, what is the core concept of the system? And it's the orb. You have an orb, they have an orb, and there should be some sort of parity between them. There should be equivalency. You can absorb, they can absorb. The distinction is that you have direct control of the orb, and they don't, because they're machines. It should become unstable for them. You feed them, it gets unstable, it starts to damage them, and it also damages other things around them. And so how it works is that you can feed it. It builds up, and as it's when it's fed a certain amount, it starts firing out. It fires out the blue and red lasers that are like these things that you can't, you have to dodge, that you can't eat. And while they're big, they also can do radiant damage to other enemies. It's sort of an aura. Less to themselves, it'd be like affect other enemies nearby, so it kind of feeds other orbs in the area, and that itself also does damage. Now it doesn't chain. It's like a chain reaction, but it's not like an exact chain reaction, because it only feeds to one, and then that one got activated by an AoE, so it doesn't affect the other one. But it always does damage to popcorn enemies. So like it seeks out enemies, and it clears them in like chain reaction ways. But feeding them and doing this, it raises rank. But if they shoot back bullets, then rank decreases. And when if they're alive at the end and they drain, the rank will decrease, making the laser less of like this sort of just thing that you fire, and it has more of a contextual reason to exist. It also allows for more interesting routing for score, but taking advantage of the mechanic more directly as something that you can do for big screen clears. I think it's more in line with the core identity. Now, second, this is less of a change and more of it's finally been implemented. Orbs and bits interact with beams. They've always done that. It's just that the effect wasn't in yet. And now when the orb interacts at the center of a laser, not the edge, it has to be the center. The bit cache will grow. And you'll go into what's called an overdraft mode, where you basically can spend your meter on credit. So the game will cache the initial value before you hit the laser, and then I have like 2 bars now, so you can see where the initial level is and where the higher level is. And when you stop absorbing with the laser, it will drain back to that cache point. So if you die or you use laser, it'll drain from that cached value. It won't drain from the absorbed value. So you basically can take all these extra hits and it doesn't apply to that moment. Now, if it drains back to that cache point, so if you have, like, let's say you have 164 power and you absorb till max to 500, then you drain. If you drain or meter or like use a laser or you die or something, and it goes to like 114, your overdraft value doesn't change, right? It'll stay at whatever it is at this point, but the point it goes down to will change, right? Kind of weird to explain, but you won't die at 0. Essentially, you'll always be left at 0. I think it's easier to see in action, but it's kind of hard to explain. So the stage 3 boss really couldn't be done properly until this was in. And a lot of stage 3 stuff actually couldn't be properly implemented until this was fully in, which is laser clashing has an effect, and it has like an interaction. It's not like in G-Darius or in Border Down or Metal Black where there's a beam duel, but rather there's unstable reactions, just like how when you fire into the orb it shoots out red and blue lasers. When lasers clash, there's also red and blue stuff that comes out, but it comes out, I have to work on the pattern and everything, but the concept is that it's a sort of like dimensional rift occurs, right? And both you and the enemy can be damaged by these things. So, you know, it's like an interesting way of dealing with the thing, at least for me. So those are some short mechanical changes, very big in terms of actual gameplay, but I mean, they weren't in yet, so it was kind of difficult to really see what the full potential of the system could be until when these things weren't in. So I had to put them in so I could start to rework everything, and I couldn't finish the rest of the stages without this because it was really kind of important to get them in first. So